Welcome to NCCUniverse, produced at the North Carolina Central University Television Studio. I'm Larry McGill, your guide through this episode. On January 16, 2014, North Carolina Central University commemorated the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The event was held at B. Duke Auditorium, and Dr. Marc Lamont Hill was the guest speaker. Dr. Hill is an associate professor at Columbia University in New York and an award-winning writer. Through his accomplishments in media, politics, and education, Dr. Hill continues King's legacy of making positive change. He encourages others to do the same. This is part one of a 5-video series on Dr. Hill's speech. From B. Duke Auditorium, here's Dean Carlton Wilson with an introduction.
It's my pleasure today to introduce the speaker, Dr. Marc Lamont Hill. And I'm sure that many of you already know of the good work that he is doing around the nation. Clearly, he is one of the nation's most notable African-American leaders among a new generation of public intellectuals. To his credit, he's an award-winning writer, columnist, editor-at-large, activist, social critic, academician, anthropologist. The list can go on and on. More importantly, he's the founding board member of a leading nonprofit and one of the top, I know the students will enjoy this, hip-hop scholars in the country. So you can relate to him on many, many different levels. Hill has been a social justice activist and organizer since his youth, growing up in the urban area around Philadelphia. He's worked very closely with some of the leading organizations in this country that have consistently advocated for social justice and change. For example, the American Civil Liberties Union. You know, where would we be today without organizations like this? These are organizations that Dr. King worked with, and he foresaw that their work would continue to be very important in this nation. Dr. Hill has focused a lot of work on issues that have a significant impact on all of our communities, particularly his work dealing with the abuse of drugs and rehabilitation associated with drug use. He's been very politically active, not only among African American youth, but among the Latino community throughout the country. He's created literacy projects that have benefited many of our youth. He uses hip-hop culture to increase student engagement, to increase students being interested in furthering their skills that are going to help them through their school years. So this is what we mean by the whole notion of an activist. Using popular culture to bring about change that really has a significant impact on the quality of life of all of us. He holds a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania. He's a faculty member at Columbia University. His research focuses on the intersection between culture, politics, and education. He's particularly interested in offering and engaging people in what you may consider unusual locations and sites. So we can take all of the knowledge, all of the activism into the prisons, into local community centers. So the whole notion here that we can learn everywhere. We don't have to come into these hallowed halls. We can take it out into the community. And Dr. Hill is doing an excellent job of that. So he's very much known for his thoughtful perspectives on a lot of topics, from sexuality, of course, education, to religion. So to be sure, my colleagues and friends, Dr. Hill embodies the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. and many others who walked with Dr. King. Dr. King clearly realized his job, and he did an excellent job of bringing about the foundations of the society in which we live. But he also understood that he could not complete the journey that there will have to be many others, many of you, to come in the future to create the type of nation and society that we know could happen here in America and throughout the world. So, Dr. Hill is one of those individuals that Dr. King envisioned, that would keep the march moving. So we're very, very pleased to have Dr. Hill with us today to share some of his ideas about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Dr. Hill.
It is truly, truly, truly an honor to be invited here today to North Carolina Central University for what to me is the most important day of the calendar year. It is nothing short of extraordinary that this country has been able to come to terms with itself enough to honor the life and legacy, officially, the life and legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. Someone who, in my estimation, is the greatest American ever produced. And so I want to thank you all as a community for letting me in. Madam Chancellor, thank you so much for inviting me. Students, staff, thank you so much for welcoming me into your community. To the gentlemen in the black and gold bow ties, the men of Alpha Phi Alpha, thank you so much for the work you've done this morning. You truly model the motto, if at first you don't succeed, in 1906. You get it right in 1911. Some of y'all are catching late the cue to get it tomorrow. But seriously though, the idea of being able to come into a community such as this, at a moment such as this, is really nothing short of extraordinary, because we're at a time in our American history where it is convenient and compelling to believe that we don't even need a Martin Luther King Jr. commemoration anymore. It is increasingly convenient to believe that America has come to terms with itself in such a way that the idea of freedom and freedom fighting is no longer necessary. That is why I come here today to not only honor the life and legacy and memory of Martin King, but to also, in the spirit and legacy of Martin King, challenge all of us to think a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder, a little bit brighter about what is possible for the future. And the future is indeed bright, and it's the brightness of the future and the brightness of the moment that sometimes makes us think that we don't even need this day, because it is truly an honor to say that we have Barack Obama in the White House. And in some ways, the legacy of King now stands in the front, in the foreground, in some ways in the backdrop against Barack Obama. In other words, when we think about Martin King, we think, oh my God. It is because of this man that we have been able to fulfill the journey of democracy, because in 2008, on November 4th, the black man was elected to be the president of the United States of America. That is nothing short of special. In some ways, it is a marker of our democratic progress. It is a marker of how far we've come as a nation, because we are just a little over a century beyond the Emancipation Proclamation when he is elected. We are just a century beyond separate but equal when he is elected. We are just a few decades beyond barking dogs and segregated lunch counters and water hoses spraying at innocent black bodies. We are just 43 years after the Voting Rights Act of 1965 when he is elected. In other words, 43 years after black people got the right to vote. 43 years after black people became full citizenship, before we had access to the franchise, before we became true Americans. 43 years after all of that, one of our own babies becomes the leader of the most powerful empire in human history. It suggests that we live in something that is special. It suggests that we live in a nation that can grow. It suggests that we live in a nation that expands. It suggests that we live in a space that is able to flourish. It suggests that we live in a country that doesn't just grow old, but also grows up. But that ain't enough. That ain't enough. That ain't enough. There's still people who are singing about what it means to be free. Trying to scramble and scrape and figure out what freedom looks like. In the midst of all this expanding freedom, we still wrestling with unfreedom. At a moment where so many of us are enjoying access to a college and access to good jobs and access to fancy degrees, so many of us are still trying to eat every day. Some of y'all know them. Some of y'all live with them. Some of y'all are them. You go to work every day, and the month lasts longer than your money. There are people in the richest country in human history who live on the street. 2 in 5 of our children in this country live in poverty. Dropout rates in some cities up to 75%. No books in the classroom, but more and more jails. We built first-class jails and second-class schools. It's in the midst of that world that Dr. King's legacy cries out to us that we can't stop here. We must continue to fight. And so the question becomes, what do we do in 2014 to expand the legacy of Martin King, to honor his memory, and to move this country forward? Because we indeed have to move the country forward. We all felt good last year in 2013 in January when we went to D.C. in the mall to celebrate the re-election of Barack Obama. We put on our best clothes, we said nice things, people who didn't even vote for him came. It's like a wedding, you know? Everybody show up, looking good, talking good. You don't like the couple, you wait till you get home to talk about them. And in the moment of existential joy, we can say, this is a beautiful thing, this is a beautiful ceremony, this is a beautiful commemoration. But beautiful commemorations don't make for long-term success. There's a lot of people that's good at weddings and bad at marriage. So the question then becomes, what does the next day look like? What lesson can Dr. King offer us to make this world different and better? And the answer, I think, comes in a few steps. I'm going to offer you those steps in a little bit of time that I have here, and I'm going to leave y'all alone.